We're back with the new Republican attack line of the week. Drum roll, please. They're all calling the president divisive. Florida Senator Marco Rubio kicked it off over the weekend in South Carolina, calling the president the most divisive figure in American history. Last night, Paul Ryan spoke at the Reagan Library calling out the, quote, divisive politics of the last 3 years. And over on Fox News, Sean Hannity got the memo. But former Secretary of State Colin Powell, a Republican, was there to set the record straight.
So I find him one of the most divisive figures that I've witnessed in politics today.
Well, that's the term that's being used rather freely. I don't think he's that divisive an issue. I think what we have right now, we've got dueling points of view, strongly held by both sides. And the president is starting to go to the mattresses, just as if Republicans are going to go to the mattresses to try to win the election. What could have been more divisive than when President Obama was inaugurated for a number of Republicans, friends of mine, and a number of commentators to say, we're going to destroy him.
From day one, they hatched a plan over dinner to bring him down. And for 3.5 years, it's only gotten harsher and uglier. So, General Powell, why did you endorse President Obama in 2008?
I felt that the Republican Party at that time was conveying an impression of harshness. There was a certain ugliness to some of the things that were being said about President Obama and some of the things that you'd see at the campaign events.
Harshness and ugliness. Just moments ago, the president responded in Denver with his take.
I am absolutely convinced we're not as divided as our politics suggest right now. I still believe we've got more in common than the pundits tell us. We're not Democrats or Republicans first, we're Americans first. That's what I believe.
Joining me now is Melissa Harris Perry, host of MSNBC's Melissa Harris Perry, and Catherine Cryer, a former judge, prosecutor, journalist, and author of Patriot Act's What America Must Do to Save the Republic. Thanks to both of you for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. You bet.
Melissa, this divisive line of attack seems to be the new one. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, at the moment, I'm just loving Colin Powell, right? Wasn't that sort of a statesman-like moment? Here you've got surrogates on the president's, own team who are making these false equivalencies between the Bain Capital question and the Reverend Wright question. And here you've got General Powell really making it very plain, very clear that, no, this is a president who ran very much on a kind of method and goal of unifying the country and was met with what must be described as massive resistance from day one. From the moment that he took office, there has been nothing but massive resistance, a kind of just say no program on the part of Republicans who are now sort of using exactly their own tactics to describe the president, saying that he's divisive when in fact they are. It's really an incredible sort of projection, kind of psychological projection of the GOP onto the president.
Now, Catherine, last night at the Reagan Library, Congressman Paul Ryan complained about President Obama's divisive politics. This is what he says. He said the divisive politics of the last 3 years have not only undermined social solidarity, they have brought progress and reform to a standstill at the very time when America was desperate for solutions to a devastating financial crisis.
Reverend, I'm puzzled because when you look at the record, whether it was maintaining Wall Street as his financial advisors and not getting a lot of reforms through that I think this country needs, whether it was sustaining all of the military policies, deporting more people than in 3 years than Bush did in 8, we go through all of these sort of Republican positions, and this man on so many policies could be effectively described as a moderate Republican, right. Certainly a conservative Democrat. So I'm not sure how, when you look at the empirical evidence, you can substantiate the claim that he has been divisive.
Now, Melissa, I think Catherine raises a point because even among progressives, we've heard the argument among those of us that consider ourselves progressives that he's too compromising and that he's too much trying to have unity, and he's making too many concessions. And I've gotten in one or two fights with some friends over that. I mean, I don't understand what they think he should be doing.
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly the point, is that when you look empirically at the president, as Catherine was just suggesting, you know, when you look at his foreign policy, which in many ways has been consistent with American foreign policy over time, and to the extent that it has shifted, it's shifted in ways that I think are kind of reasonable, sort of drawing down the troops in Iraq, something that the American people have indicated really since 2006 that they wanted. When you look at sort of the president's behaviors domestically, again, he governs closer to a Bill Clinton or a Ronald Reagan than he does to some sort of socialist fantasy that has been created by the right. But it's exactly because they've simply created it, that they've simply projected it. And so now they can state it and kind of continuously restate it without having to have empirical evidence to back it up. It's really just a talking point. It is not an assessment of this president's first term in office.
It also, Catherine, is not being honest about the record, because when you look at the fact that Republicans have blocked this president at almost every chance they've got. Senate Republicans blocked 9/11 first responders bill. House Republicans demanded offsets for disaster relief. Boehner rejected president's request to address Congress. Senate Republicans filibustered the jobs bill. Senate Republicans filibustered judicial nominees. And then after all of this, you have Ryan standing up there last night talking about he brought progress and reform to a standstill. Everything he proposed, they either filibustered or blocked.
That's right. And one more I want to add to that is the military budget. We know that the Republicans agreed that they were going to go along with major cuts. And what did they do? They immediately abandoned this position this last week and said, no, we're ignoring it. We're going to push for a military budget that even exceeds what the Pentagon is asking for. So they're even backtracking on their own agreements. It's pretty extraordinary. But I would ask the American people, whether you're right, left, or center, whoever you want to vote for, is go back to the empirical evidence and look at the numbers. It would take you a couple of minutes on the internet to find the answers to these questions, but the rhetoric is incendiary and the rhetoric is false.
Now, you know, in Robert Draper's book, Melissa, it's all part of the plan to make the president a one-term president, according to Draper's book. Step one, show united and unyielding opposition to the president's economic policy. Step two, win the spear point of the House in 2010. Step three, jab Obama relentlessly in 2011. Step four, win the White House and the Senate in 2012. According to Draper's book, that was the 4 steps, and they seem to be staying right on that strategy.
Yeah, and I want to be really clear. All of this, sort of this whole goal of winning, because, you know, if you're in a democracy, sure, you have a goal of winning. You set out a strategy for winning. Part of setting out a strategy for winning is beating the opposition. But we should be really clear that they apparently want to win just to win. And I think this would go back to Catherine's point about if you look empirically at how this president has governed in a way that's actually been very moderate, and particularly given how bad our circumstances are, he's actually been extremely moderate, very much willing to compromise. And so this desire to win is not rooted in like some sort of great desire to do better by the country, because the country is doing better than it was. This is just about winning for winning's sake. And I think that's the thing that ought to make us the most nervous.
And Reverend, not to sort of pitch the book, but I talk in there, one of my favorite quotes is from John Adams: ideology is the science of idiots. And in fact, we have a party right now that is pressing ideology to the detriment of our constitutional republic. And many of their positions, many of the rule changes in Congress that, you know, prohibit bills even coming out of committee without 60 votes, we're not getting the kind of rational compromise that, in fact, the founders created. The Grand Compromise was what they called James Madison's Constitution, when both sides, the left and the right, gave up the attempt to make this country sway one way or the other and said, we're going to have a level playing field, we're going to have rules, and every 2 to 4 years we're going to have to convince the American people which way they're going to go within the rules of the game. They're now changing the rules, which ultimately could dismantle the very thing they allege they're trying to preserve, and that is this constitutional republic.
Be careful, they'll be calling John Adams a socialist. Melissa Harris Perry and Catherine Cryer, thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Rev.
And be sure to catch Melissa's show, Melissa Harris Perry, from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time, Saturday and Sunday. Coming up, Republicans try to rewrite the history of the civil rights movement, saying the GOP is and always has been the party of civil rights. I have a few things to say about that. But first, remember Joe the plumber? He's back. He's running for Congress. He's saying some controversial things, and he's coming up live on Politics Nation. Al the Preacher meets Joe the plumber. That's next.